A lot of people are still asking me what happened. This is me at the beginning of the year, and then a motorcycle accident almost took my life. I was hospitalized for close to 3 months and basically broke the left side of my body with my leg getting the worst of it. But man, did the love really pour in. I was brought live music, I was brought food, I was brought yoga. The community really showed up for me. I even reconnected with my dad and rekindled with my mom. And nothing stopped me though. Not even a traumatized eye.
Sam Hill kid doing his thing.
Little by little, I was able to work my way back.
Look at this guy.
Getting discharged from hospitalization was a little bittersweet, but the hard work continues. There's so much ground to make up to get my body back to where it was. And even though that's the most important thing, I'm still taking the time to do other things I love. Music, food, community and food, sheesh. I am so grateful for the support and for a second chance to do the things that I love to do.
Welcome to the Awaken to Healing podcast. This is a podcast for those on a healing journey, whether it's mental, emotional, spiritual, or physical, or those in a healing-based business who have overcome their own personal challenges. We are all in this together, bridging the gap between mental health, spirituality, trauma, and healing, embracing people from all walks of life so that they can share their story. I'm your host, Juliet Marie, the owner of the Healing House Tempe, Glowing Soul Wellness, and Spectrum Yogis. Today we have a very special guest, Patrick Fumarola, and he has quite the story from being homeless as a teenager to battling and overcoming a drug addiction and mental illness to being in a motorcycle accident and almost losing his life. He survived it all, and now he is here to share his story. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So, for people that don't know you, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Patrick. I'm 35. I like long walks on the beach at sunset. I think that's how it goes. I'm from Boston. I've been out in Arizona for the last 12 years. Basically born and bred and raised in Boston. And I feel like it's just a little different out there than it is out here. A lot more of like a tougher mentality, but very lucky to have stumbled into the position that I'm currently in with the community I'm currently in that has a lot more of a softer demeanor and a spiritual demeanor, and any chance that I get to cultivate that spirituality in the community, I like to jump at it. That leads me here. I'm grateful to be here.
I remember the first time I met you, I said, "Are you from New York?" You said, "It's better, I'm from Boston."
I mean, the verbiage still stands, yeah.
So I met you because you had a advertisement, or maybe it wasn't an advertisement, it was a story on Instagram. And I don't know when it was, but you had a gathering at the Salt River, and it was called Day Camp, where you brought the community together, and we had a potluck and music and yoga and sound healing, and everybody jumped into the river and did a cold plunge, and you seemed to bring community together.
I'm really grateful that I am able to do that. We've done a few day camps, and you said potluck, and little secret, I did all the food.
Oh yeah, nobody else brought food. You brought a lot, the pasta salad.
And I would do it 100 times. That was just basically my gift to everybody that was there. Like, I was super lucky that I'm even in a position to create something like that, to have an event like that where so many beautiful humans can gather and express themselves in any way that they see fit. Just really lucky that I could partake in that situation. It's different, a little different every time. I think at the one that you're talking about, the first one you were at, we had the beautiful Juliet doing sound healing. She did a sound healing / sound bath while we were all in a cuddle puddle on blankets and in the grass, like 20, 30 of us at the end. It was an unreal experience. The voice on her, like, not only does she do a great podcast, but she can sing, this girl.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll never forget, you kept saying, here now, and your beautiful singing voice. And that brought me right out of my ADD train. I was present for the whole time. So thank you for helping me stay present. Appreciate it.
Thank you for bringing community together. And here you are. I didn't know you. You gathered all these beautiful people to share their gifts, to gather in community, to feel love, to feel peace, to feel acceptance. And then you went on to have a party that I went to for your cat, where the whole party was dedicated to your cat. And it was such a beautiful experience with laughter and fun and bubbles. I brought a bubble gun and you were bubbling and dancing around and hula hooping. And we had just a grand old time. And then from there, we went to a gathering in Payson. And you had an amazing poem about smelly armpits that you wrote.
Pheromones. But yeah, same thing.
And then all of a sudden, a few days later, I see online that you were in a severe accident and that you were in a coma. So I think a lot of people have a lot of questions. And I feel that this is a great opportunity to share your story, because to explain what happened and how you are today.
Yeah, I think, there's really not like a particular order that these events of my life can be need to be described in. In terms of the motorcycle accident, it was definitely the most physically tough thing that I've had to go through. But in terms of like emotional toughness, it was very a lot lower on the list. I've had other things that I've had to go through, that I've had to cope with in my life, that take the cake easily in terms of degree of difficulty. But a big reason why that is the case and that is so is because getting through those things in the past taught me lessons that I carry with me for the rest of my life, that I will carry with me to help me get through any situation like a motorcycle accident.
So what happened on the day, for people that are wondering, on the day of the accident, because you have been very active in acro yoga, which is like an acrobatics yoga. You're a very active person. And you put people on your feet up in the air and do all these crazy tricks. And so what was happening on the day of the accident?
Well, coming home from that trip that you had just mentioned,
in Payson,
I got a flat tire on my vehicle, and due to time restrictions on trying to get it changed out, I needed to take my motorcycle to work for the next 2 days. And that Tuesday rolled around and I leave my house and I don't remember anything after that.
So you don't remember anything from the accident. So you had a flat tire, you came back from Payson, having an amazing trip, and I was there at this beautiful gathering that someone had in their house in Payson. We had a beautiful time going to the creek, doing an open mic night, playing music, having an amazing time. And then you get a flat tire on the way home from Payson.
Yeah.
And then you had to use your motorcycle to go to work. And then after that, you don't remember anything about the accident.
Well, yeah, leaving my house on that Tuesday morning, getting on my motorcycle, I don't remember anything after that.
Okay. So all I saw was online, your brother posted that Patrick has been in a severe motorcycle accident. We don't know if he's going to make it. He's in critical condition. And then I heard you were in a coma, and I was praying for you. I was really praying for you because I had just seen you, and I was with my two friends that are visiting me. They're actually from New Jersey, and we were just all praying. And I actually went hiking to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and there was this very remote section of the Grand Canyon where there's cell service. And when I went to that remote section, I heard on the GoFundMe that you had just gotten out of the coma. And I was praying. I was like, wow, he got out of the coma. So when you got out of the coma, what happened after that?
Well, in my particular situation, getting out of the coma wasn't like waking up from a nap. I'm not sure. Other comas, maybe that's how it is, but it wasn't like I'm now finally conscious and I'm like, wait, where am I? No. I might as well have been in a coma more or less for the next month or so.
Okay.
I don't really remember much. There's little pieces that I remember, some really cool little pieces, granted. But in terms of like having a grip on reality and consciously remember my day-to-day as I do now, that wasn't a real thing.
So
for
it
me
was
for
kind of
very
like a
long
dream.
time.
Was it like a dream-like state, almost like a fog, and you were kind of waking up? How long were you in the coma for?
11 days from what I read on reports.
And it was an induced coma.
Yes.
So what were the injuries that you endured in the accident?
So, I mean, there's the technical and like medical terms of every single one of them may be like too long to really discuss, but like the short version of it is my leg took the worst of it. It snapped in half from my knee to my ankle, the fibula and tibula. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Tibia, fibula, whatever. There's an L in there somewhere. That snapped in half and was hanging on just by skin and muscle. My femur broke. That snapped in half too, but not like hanging on by a thread. Ribs were broken. Facial fractures, neck fractures, traumatic brain injury, bleeding in my brain, nerve damage pretty much all on the left side of my body.
Did you have a rib that was punctured or a lung or?
Maybe probably.
Because I remember reading the list.
Yeah.
I was reading the list, and I don't know if it was ribs that broke or something, but there was a whole extensive list of what was happening.
Part of the problem that I don't know exactly what happened to me is that by the time I did regain consciousness, I was moved to a different hospital. So it wasn't like I could ask the surgeons or ask the doctors that were there, who took me in on the accident. It's not like I could ask them what happened. I still don't know the extent of what happened. And I do there's something called a MyChart, and it's basically like an online record of your medical history. And, I have the MyChart of the accident, but trying to read that, it's like another language.
Mm-hmm.
I had a nurse friend read kind of part of it, and, I guess she was saying I had like 20 plus blood transfusions.
Wow.
And she had only like gotten to the first little piece of it, and she was like blown away. I guess it was like, it's a lot to sift through.
And a lot to process.
Yeah.
So when it goes back to the accident, what happened? What caused the accident?
Disclaimer. Well, not disclaimer, but like, want to like shout out to everybody. Please be super careful when you're driving, and look twice on motorcycles. A 80-year-old lady was leaving a Taco Bell restaurant, and she jumped in like the far lane and then did a U-turn without looking. And if she had looked, she would have seen me coming, going about 55, 60. And I ended up, from what I understand from like talking to people and like some reports that I was able to read, I basically drove straight into her like a brick wall. Like, sometimes when people get into accidents, they flip over the cars, and, that can be pros and cons with that, because you can scrape your skin really easily, but you don't take the full impact of an accident in that manner if you do flip over. I didn't flip over. I basically hit the car like a brick wall. And
was it the back of the car?
I think it was the side.
Okay.
It was, she did a U-turn, and I just smacked right into her. So I think like maybe as she was turning, boom, smacked into her. And luckily was pretty close by a hospital. Ambulance came fairly quickly, and they, I guess from what I read, they like approached the scene, and I was kind of like, for a person who doesn't have a leg, I was further away from the accident than I should have been. And they like came over to me and were trying to talk to me, and I guess I was like swearing at them, like telling them to leave me alone. Like, I don't remember any of it, but the Boston side of me probably was out in full effect after.
And adrenaline's pumping. When you're in something so traumatic, all these chemicals are, Now, one thing I wanted the audience to know is you were wearing a helmet.
Yes.
So if
Always wear a helmet, especially, I want to say especially in Arizona, but you should be wearing a helmet everywhere.
And even with the helmet, you had a traumatic brain injury with bleeding in the brain.
Yeah.
So for those that are watching, that helmet actually saved your life.
Yeah, definitely. I can't say for sure I would have died, but there's very little reason to believe that I wouldn't have at least been a vegetable if I wasn't wearing a helmet. So, just better safe than sorry. Like, simple as that.
So when you woke up from the coma, it took time for you to gain your consciousness back. But when you finally became aware, there was something really funny that you said. When they asked you, do you know what happened to your leg? What did you say?
So, again, I still don't remember much of it, but I kind of remember, like, to back this up a little bit, my mother and father they're not together, and they don't even talk, but I guess they banded together and they flew out to Arizona from Boston to come and sit hospital bedside with me right after they found out, throughout my coma. And then even after my coma, my brother came out and just some family and my mother's really good friend. And, everyone was really worried for a while from what I understand. And nobody knew if I would, make it through the brain injury. They didn't know that if I would succumb to the brain injuries and just not ever be myself again or ever be normal or able to talk regularly ever again. And, there was a real uneasiness in the room around me all the time. People worried constantly. And I think it was maybe an occupational therapist who came in and was trying to work with me and talking to me and asking me some regular questions like, do you know where you are? And I don't know if I answered that well. And then she's like, do you know what happened to your leg? And I'm like, yeah, it's broken from kicking so much ass. And the collective sigh and simultaneous eruption of laughter from my family was just beautiful. It's beautiful for me to even hear. That signified to them that Patrick is going to be okay. This is Patrick. He's back and he's talking right now, even for just a brief moment, and he's going to be okay. So that was a really cool experience.
It must have been a sense of relief because you still had your sense of humor and it kind of lightened the mood from all the chaos that was going on of the worrying and the stress and the anxiety. What I want to talk about is your parents, because I know that when there's tragedy, sometimes it can bring people together. And what was your relationship with your parents like before the accident?
We don't have it. Not the time. I wish that we had more time. I could talk more, but I'll try to keep it brief. My father, I hadn't talked to him in 10 years until last year. Last year, I ended up seeing him at my younger brother's band's gig that he was having at some sort of a bar in Portland. And, we kind of, we talked for a little bit, and then back in Boston a few days later, we ended up hanging out for a little bit. And, I was really excited to be back in touch with them. But a few months go by and we just kind of lost touch. And, that thing just kind of happens sometimes, especially because we hadn't talked in so long before that. He heard about my accident and he's been right by my side ever since. Maybe it's sad that sometimes it takes a tragic accident to happen to realize how much you're meant to be in someone's life or how much you love and care for somebody. But that is the nature of humanity, I guess, sometimes. And that is a big silver lining in this situation. Kind of same with my mother, didn't obviously go 10 years without talking to her, but never really had a relationship with her. She was my mother always and never my friend, maybe not even my mother always. There was a long time where we didn't talk. And, that's not her fault really not my fault, just circumstantial to a degree. But, she came out right away, and I talked to her every few days now. She ended up staying in Arizona and staying by my bedside through her birthday even, and that was really beautiful. And she doesn't really know her son all that well on, out here. Like, I'm on my home turf. I go back to Boston and visit her, but like, I'm kind of playing an away game at that point. But she was out here, and she spent her birthday out here, and 6 o'clock rolls around. She's like, Pat, do you mind if I leave? It's my birthday. Like, I want to just go back to the hotel room and relax. And normally I'm like, yeah, do whatever you want. No problem. But today I'm like, no, what do you think this is? Like, no, you got to hang out with me for a little while longer. A little while longer.
And you were in the rehab center at this time?
Yeah, I still say hospitalization, but it was like a step down hospital, basically. And little does she know that I'm pretty good at getting people together. And the beautiful Juliet was able to come, as well as about 10 other people, and we sang her happy birthday. We did a sound bath. We did cake. I kind of put together a little surprise birthday party for her. And, the happiness and gratitude that I saw on her face, I'll remember until the day I die. And I'll never forget that. And I'm so incredibly grateful that I was able to give that to my mother. It's little situations like this that make the accident all worth it. Obviously I wouldn't want to do this again, but I find the silver linings in these situations, and I'm so, 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 so grateful that there are so many silver linings for me to find.
And leave it up to you in a rehab center, just going through this traumatic accident, getting out of a coma, almost losing a leg, and here you are calling me and planning your mother's birthday party from the rehab center. I'm like, he's back, leave it up to him, getting the cake, getting me to do sound healing. I brought my ukulele. And it really seemed that was something you wanted to share with your mother, because when you said that she didn't know her son, you were talking about yourself. She doesn't know who you are now. So I kind of want to talk about who you were before and who you are now. But before we get to that was such a great, amazing opportunity for your mom to come after being reunited after 10 years, really, and showing her, or...
Well, like my dad, 10 years.
Okay.
My mother, I've been in her, we've been in each other's life. There was a 5-ish year period where we didn't talk at all.
Okay.
But it's been about 6 years since that.
So that's still 6 years is a really long time. And then now she's getting a glimpse inside of your world, who Patrick is now, not only through you and who you say you are, but through your friends and through the community of all the wonderful people that you bring together through all the events, the parties, the gatherings, and all the love. And when people talk about you, she can see her son for the first time in a new light of who you are now. And it could be very healing.
Yeah, I mean, the community, man, that I basically had a warm blanket around me the entire time, and that warm blanket was the community. So many of my friends came and visited me and expressed to my mother how lucky they are to know me and to have me in their life. And I go home and I'm like a different person than I used to be, but it's really tough to quantify it, because little facades can be had for short durations when you're visiting. But her coming out here and meeting my friends who are a reflection of me, it was just a beautiful thing. I'll never forget how amazing my friends made me feel based on their interaction with my mother and my father. I still talk to them all the time, and they swear that I have the best community and the best friends, and it's true. As much as the community and my friends love me, it's right back times 10. I love all of you so very, very much.
Well, everyone showed up for you because you have showed up for each and every one of the people that have showed up for you, you made an impact in their lives, or they wouldn't have come through and supported you and worried about you. And I know you were surrounded in so much love and so much prayer and so much healing, and everybody was rooting for you. And I think the positive energy of that love and that frequency was helpful for your healing process, because we heal in community. We really heal in community. And you have cultivated such a community of love and acceptance and peace and healing around you.
You're so right. I mean, the name of the game for me has been healing, especially during, since, really my whole life, healing in different avenues, in different ways. But physically, my physical body and even my emotional and spiritual were damaged with this accident in a big way. But a lot of the things that I've learned in the past on how to deal and how to cope have, made this situation that much easier to handle. Couple that with the amazing group of people I have there to be supportive and to uplift me. And this has been, in comparison, a very much easier time than ever before. So I'm really, really grateful for that.
What's amazing is something that you said at the beginning of this podcast, and something you said to me recently, is that the accident, the physical accident of the motorcycle accident, wasn't the hardest situation that you've been in your life. And you said it was the most difficult physically, but it wasn't the most emotionally challenging time. Do you have anything you'd like to share about some of your other challenging times?
Well, yeah, I mean, a few things come to mind, and I guess like a big one right off rip is, as a young child, I was diagnosed like a variety of mental illnesses, on medication since 7 years old. And that's not like super abnormal or unique, but how I went about the next like several years was really tough, and I just couldn't figure out how to exist in society as we know it. By the time adolescence rolled around, I was homeless, and trying to navigate that with the severity of my mental illnesses. I spent a lot of nights crying, sleeping in the slide, and a slide.
A slide, like a slide at a park?
Yeah, Farragut Park is like one that comes to mind in South Boston.
How old were you at the time?
16, 17, 18 on, yeah.
And you were struggling with mental illness, and you ended up homeless at 16, 17, 18.
Well, like those were like, I say, teenage years that I was homeless.
Did you finish high school?
No.
Okay, no. You're such a smart person. I look at you as such an intelligent person. And school isn't a representation of someone's intelligence, because I know that you are deep, you are feeling, and you are very smart. And so here you are struggling with mental illness, 7 years old, being put on medication, then sleeping in parks. Then when did the drug addiction start?
That wasn't until much, much later in life. I had already moved to Arizona, and I remember the exact month. It was June of 2015 is when addiction took a hold of me. And I don't want to, and for me, maybe I'm just a little different. My mental health issues manifested themselves in addiction. Addiction became a symptom of my overall mental health issues. Some people that's different. That's not the case. But for me, that's what I perceive my addiction to be.
Well, a lot of people, when they have a mental illness, they want to soothe and self-medicate because they can't function in society with mental health issues. And what are you going to do? You're going to find things that can calm you and soothe you to be able to cope in a world with a mental illness. So yes, addiction is a symptom of a deeper issue. And what we really should be focusing on is on mental health. So you got involved after being homeless and having all these mental health struggles. It wasn't until later that you ended up finding drugs. Was it alcohol as well? Was that a problem?
So throughout my teenage years, I would drink, and sometimes I drink a little excessively, but never enough to quantify that as like a problem, as I know alcoholism to be. No, I wouldn't say so.
Okay, so you got involved in drugs, and how did that impact your life?
Well, to kind of back it up just a little bit, you know, the discombobulation of my late teenage years and the homelessness led me along different paths. Was in and out of jail a lot. I've at the end of the day spent about 5 years behind jail, but in prison and in jail. Wow. Total. And the homelessness made me make a lot of split-second decisions to get out of that. And a few of those ways were to travel, with groups that would house me. And I ended up having a friend that was out in Arizona who was working for a company that would house people from out of state. And I ended up checking it out and coming out to Arizona when I was maybe 22 or 23. I met a girl and we quickly became pregnant and had a baby in February of 2013, basically a year after being in Phoenix. And from that point forward, for the next 2 years, I was mostly okay. Before that, have struggled immensely mentally. And even during this time, I was still struggling sporadically mentally, but I was able to hold it together for a little bit. I held on a job mostly, had an apartment mostly, only one eviction this time.
Was your daughter a motivation to stay sane and clean and stable?
Yeah. And not even just a motivation, just a shining light in me, loved having her around. She was so much fun, to be with, to be around. And, but at the end of the day, you can have all the things that numb mental illness or gloss it over unless you're fully trying to fix it. It's not going to work for me, and it didn't. I ended up walking in the bathroom of a friend of mine was in the bathroom, and he was smoking a pipe of meth, and it was a really bad day for me. And surprisingly, I was give me the thing, and slowly but surely, I became addicted to meth, which was really strange because in Boston, I had grown up around heroin and hard drugs my whole life and was maybe just very stubborn, but fully against them, never would do them, even though I was around them all the time. And, 24, 25 is kind of a late age to start using drugs. I feel like it's something that usually happens a lot sooner, but it hit me. And, this is part of why my mother and my relationship was fractured for so long, was because I started using drugs and she came out to get Evelyn, just supposed to be for a vacation to bring Evelyn back to Boston.
Evelyn's your daughter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And this is when the drugs were first starting to take their grip on me. And she took one look at the condition of the apartment I was in and got back on the plane with Evelyn and didn't let me see her for almost 5 years.
So your mom had your daughter for 5 years. Mm-hmm. So after that happened and she had her for 5 years, where is the child now and what happened?
So she's still in Boston. At this point, it took me 4 or 5 years to get back to a normal place of mind, and to be sober. So, and by the time that happened, my daughter was already too comfortable in Boston. She loves it out there. If I were to, fight to bring her back here, it would be doing everybody a disservice. She's too comfortable out there. She visited me a year ago and hated it. Okay. And that's sad and tough to deal with, but I know it's for the best, and that's something that makes it a lot easier to cope with.
So your mom took care of her for 5 years, and now where is your daughter?
She's still with my mother in Boston.
Oh, she's still with your mother in Boston. Mm. Okay. Yeah, so that's an interesting story because you never know what someone's going through when children, get taken away and what the situation was. And so here you are struggling with the mental illness, struggling with the drug addiction. How did you end up getting through all of that?
Well, I mean, that's kind of like, I don't know how people feel when they hear that, like, this guy, like, lost custody of his kids or whatever. Like, usually I feel like that's met with anger or hostility towards that person. But, and maybe rightfully so. At that time, you could meet me with as much anger and hostility as you wanted. Like, I deserved really every bit of it, even though I was struggling immensely. But, the amount of anger and hostility that you would meet me would pale into comparison as the amount that I met myself with. It was a really, really hard road to try to cope with a lot of those things, with the homelessness as a teenager, with, losing the custody of my daughter. There was a lot of situations like that took a long time and every ounce of strength that I had to feel better about it. And, luckily after a while, I was able to find ways to cope with that, able to find ways to live, to exist with the damage I have caused, and to forgive myself for, the suffering I inflicted on family and myself. It wasn't easy, but the lessons I've learned in situations like that have made situations in the future like a motorcycle accident like a cakewalk. Like, this is
like a walk in the park compared to what you've been through. I think I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was going to say, people see a physical ailment such as an accident or an injury, something that they could physically see, but people don't realize that mental illness and things that they can't see can sometimes be so much more traumatic, but it's not visible. So you were saying that you found ways to cope. What are some of the healing modalities or things that have helped you, because you're sober now? How long have you been sober?
I'm going to open up a little bit
Okay.
more.
Okay, sure.
This isn't something I try to just be completely outright, but
Okay.
shortly after my mother took my daughter back to Boston, me and my kid's mother quickly were pregnant again.
Okay.
We basically got pregnant in a drug-filled craze. And 9 months later, after a few sobriety attempts, but no success, not having any success in it, we had a baby. We had that baby at a time where we were broken, homeless, beaten, battered, just every word you can think of.
So this is baby number 2.
Baby number 2. Within the next month, I was arrested and put in jail, and then put in prison. I spent the next, 14 consecutive months in jail. During that time, CPS got involved. And in jail out here, I continued getting high. In prison, I continued getting high. I couldn't figure out how to stop getting high to save my life. And even when I got out, the same thing applies. Couldn't figure out how to stop. So not only save my life, but to save the relationship with both of my daughters at this time. CPS ended up severing the rights. And the last day that I saw my youngest daughter, I was arrested in the same incident in a traumatic and heartbreaking fashion. This is one of the most traumatic and heartbreaking events I've ever gone through, is that particular day. And I ended up spending the next 90 days in jail, but getting released to a rehab. And I was ready to go. Like, I went to that rehab, so grateful to be there. I brought a notebook and a pen to every class. I took notes. I was so serious about learning about my mental illness and learning about addiction and trying to overcome it. I fought tooth and nail, because at this point I'm a little clear-headed. I fought tooth and nail to try to appeal the decision from the judge, but to no luck. And I tried every avenue to try to get my daughter back in my life, my youngest at this point. And when I exhausted every single avenue and no hope to get her back, I ended up relapsing 2 days
Wow.
later.
So relapse definitely is a symptom of something deeper because you were going through this traumatic incident of your daughter getting taken away.
Yeah, and I luckily only was relapsed for 6 days, but and then came right back. But the next few months were some of the hottest of my entire life. I had this awful feeling in my stomach all the time, and I couldn't get rid of it. It was some of the most excruciating pain imaginable, and I was trying to figure out how to get rid of it and how to feel better, how to cope with this situation, but I didn't relapse or use because of it, and I tried everything. Eventually, I ended up going to a Native American sweat lodge, like the ceremonies, and I've had success with spiritual cleansing in them before, and I went in there with the intention of trying to find a way to cope with this and try to find a way to make this right. And I ended up emerging victorious with that. And what I learned in that sweat lodge is that I need to change the way that I think about this. You know, if say the judge were to give me my daughter back, who's to say I would be successful in raising a kid at this time? With my like profound mental illness that I've had. You know, who's to say that I wouldn't have drowned and subsequently she would have drowned as well? I learned in that sweat lodge that I
Drowned. Were you by water?
No, like mentally drowned.
Oh, mentally drowned.
Yeah.
Okay.
That I would have like drowned mentally, and then she would have drowned in physical or mental ways. So I learned that I have a spiritual journey that I need to embark on, that I need to do on a solo mission, so that one day I can be of use to her and be a father to her later on in life. Yeah, like we think of fatherhood as like 0 to 18, but I'm talking about like from 18 to 60, I'm going to be the best father that is on this planet for her. I can't wait to help her out with any emotional problems she has, spiritual problems she has. And that means that every day I have to live up to the promise I made her the last time I seen her, that I'm going to be somebody you love, and then I'm going to do it right this time. So I've been working relentlessly to be the best human that I can possibly be, in hopes that I can be the best father for her one day. You know, my daughter out in Boston, she loves me and she loves our relationship and she loves where she is. She's super happy. And part of also being a good dad is to understand what's best for your child and let them have what's best, even if it is a blow to your ego.
How old is your oldest daughter?
She's 11.
11. And how old's your youngest?
She is 8 years old.
She's 8. And how old was she when you got arrested and she was taken away?
Like a month old.
She was only a month old.
And then when the rights were severed, she was almost 18 months old.
18 months.
That day, the last time I seen her, the cops came to the visit and arrested me while I was basically holding her. They let me kiss her goodbye one final time, and I promised her, I said, like, I'm going to be someone you love one day. I'm going to do it right this time. And I've been living and breathing that promise. And, you know, I understand, like, these aren't things that what I'm saying right now, this isn't like something to be proud of, like losing a daughter, or this isn't anything to like boast about, or like I'm not proud that this happened. I'm like actually ashamed to a degree. But one thing I want to promote is like no shame. Like we all make mistakes and we all have problems. And, you know, it really doesn't matter what you did to a degree. It's what you're doing and how you're handling your life now and how you're trying to make things better and what you're trying to do with the world. I've done a lot of awful things in my life. I'm like really kind of just scratching the surface on some of the bad things I've done. But in terms of what I'm doing now, I'm trying to fill the world with as much love as I want. My youngest daughter, January 11th, 2018 was the last time I seen her. And a couple years later, after searching for a way to make this happen, I got an email from the foster family that adopted her. And I cried like a baby when that happened. And every email I have gotten since then, I've been teared up or crying. And just a few months before the accident, I was contacted by them again, and they asked me if I wanted to come and see Emma at her cheerleading competition live and in person. And I pulled over and started bawling my eyes out again, and was like, absolutely. So within, the last 2 months before my accident, I was able to see my daughter 2 times. So the first time in about 6 years, able to see her twice at cheerleading competitions. I got to watch the expression of her face as she won her cheerleading competition, the joy that just came over. I'll never forget how she looked. I didn't get to, tell her like, hey, I'm Patrick, I'm your biological
So
dad.
she didn't know who you were, but you did get a situation where you were able to talk to her after the practice. You had no expectations that you were able to talk to her.
The first time I went there, I just kind of went there, watched it, and then had left, like not trying to stay around too much because I don't want to impose. And the foster mom reached out to me afterwards, and she's like, how'd the competition go for you? Blah, 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 blah. And she's like, I had seen you and I waved, but you didn't wave back. I'm like, oh, I didn't even see you. So the second time I went there, I was like, as they all left, I'm like, maybe I should walk by real quick just to scope out the scene. And I walked by quick, and the foster mom, she waved to me again. And she's like, hold on. She put up one finger, like, hold on. And she came over to me, and she was like, she goes, Emma did amazing. So I don't know if I should even be saying her name. She did amazing, right? And I was like, yeah, like I couldn't believe she was so confident in all of her movements, which is true. She was great. And, we're talking for a little bit, and I am seeing the expression on the foster mom's face kind of shift, like just from excited about the activity to like kind of awe and love towards me. And then like she ends up just kind of saying, she goes, you are so much different than the Patrick I met in front of the courthouse all those years ago. And I was like, I'm really glad that you're getting to meet the real me right now. And then we hugged for like 20 seconds, an earth-shattering hug. I was expressing to her verbally and even not verbally how grateful I am for her, how much I love her absolutely to death for doing what I was unable to do, and what I'm still technically unable to do for being the best mom to my daughter. And we break up a hug for a moment, and like we're still talking a little bit, but then guess who walks over is my daughter, and the mom is just like, hey, just play along with me. And I'm like, okay, I got this. Like I can be cool under pressure, like no big deal. And my daughter comes up, and the mom is like, hey, this is an old friend of mom's. This is Patrick. Do you want to say hi? She's like, hi, and we shake hands. I'm like, I watched your competition, and you did amazing. You must be so proud of yourself. And she's like kind of sheepishly, like a little shy. She's like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to leave, but maybe I'll catch another one of your competitions sometime. She's like, okay. I'm like, it was nice meeting you. And she's like, yeah. And then I like kind of wink at the mom and like grab her shoulder as I walk away. I get like 15, 20 steps, and I turn around to take one last look at her, and right at the exact same time she looks back at me, and I wave at her, and she sheepishly kind of waves back, and we both get, go along our way. I end up making it to my car, and I break down, and not even like the way like I'm sitting there sobbing. I'm like, let's go, like crying, like amped up, like bawling my eyes out, but it's like screaming for joy at the same time, and just thinking like 6 years, it's tough to quantify the hard work I put in, but like nobody sees like, point A from point B, or, the like progression I've done. But I think universally, like the universe understands, can quantify like the work that I put in, and it finally deemed me ready to see my daughter again, to be in a good position for it. And
what a unique
so grateful
situation.
for it. Yeah.
I mean, to have a foster, an adoptive parent give you access to see your daughter after 6 years, that must have been one of the most amazing moments of your entire life. I can't even imagine.
I'll never forget it. Like, obviously, there's a few things like I'll never forget, but that whole experience was, if I had died a few weeks later in the accident, like, I would have died happy that happened. Like,
So you had the accident a few weeks after you got to see your daughter and had that beautiful moment.
I think like 2 weeks after.
2 weeks later was the accident. Does the adoptive family know what happened?
So I had kind of known that my mother and the adoptive mom like talked a little bit, like, they keep in contact here and there. And so my mother told her that I was in an accident and like might lose my life, or, I don't know exactly what they told, but I ended up realizing sometime after that, like I just said earlier, like universally, the universe had decided I was ready for that to happen. And there's no other like explanation for the foster mom to let me see my daughter or to think I'm ready. But I found out a short time after the accident that my mother had helped with that situation. And told her.
Wow. Your mom had reached out, a mom that you weren't really as close with as you are now, because the accident brought you and your mom together. But before the accident, she had been reaching out to the adoptive parent of your second daughter and kind of pulled some strings to help you see her.
I'm not sure if it was like pulling strings or like campaigning for me, but I think my mother was like, yeah, Patrick's actually doing a lot better now. Like, you should give him a shot if you feel comfortable with it. Probably casually in whatever email that they send to each other. So, that's just more gratitude I have for my mother. A few weeks after the motorcycle accident happens, but, like, how can I not handle this? This is just like a physical accident in comparison to all the other shit. I don't know if I should be swearing on this.
No, you're fine.
In comparison to all the other things that I've had to endure and had to cope with and had to handle. Like, a couple basic rules of life is if you're struggling with something, you can change your perspective to match how you want to feel. I wasn't able to be a father of my daughter. Like, okay, cool, I have more work to do, so I can be a better father to her someday. Like, the grind starts now. That is a perspective that I know to be true, that also suits how I want to feel happy, okay, content about the situation. This motorcycle accident, almost losing my life, maybe I can inspire the masses. Maybe this is a situation where I can really inspire people to get through some of their hardest times that they have to go through in their life. And if there's a lot of people that I can inspire, then I'm happy to be able to do that, no matter what it is. Even with the whole losing my daughter thing, I'm like, okay, I can inspire people. Like, I can do what I need to do to be the best Patrick I can be, and I can inspire people in the process to be the best self that they can be, even though that they've messed up or have caused a lot of damage in their life.
And you are an inspiration, because look at you now. Anyone that has been through all those situations might just give up and, go back to drugs and go back to unhealthy ways and unhealthy habits. But because you found spirituality and a healing community, I've seen that the support and love that you get, how helpful that has been on your journey. For other people that have been struggling with mental illness or addiction, What are some words of wisdom that you can give them?
I mean, like, I want you to know, like, it can be fought and it can be overcome. It's been 6 years since I've been on medications now. And it's been 2 years since I've had a mental health episode.
So medications, were they prescription medications?
Yeah.
So it's been 6 years you've been off prescription medications.
Yep.
And how many years since the mental health episode?
Oh, about 2, a little over 2 now.
Over 2 years.
Yeah, and when I say mental health episode, I mean like a spiral where I'm fighting off depression and crazy anxiety, and my PTSD potentially acted up, like just unable to function in society.
Because you would think that the accident could trigger a mental health episode. And this is a real test that despite the trauma of this accident, you are still able to keep your mental health in order. For those that are watching, what are some of the things that you do to help with your mental health?
Well, I have like a couple things that are really important, like the gym, nutrition, community, finding things I'm passionate about, changing the how I perceive things, my perspective. We have a way that we interpret the stimulus of the world, and over several years, 4 or so years, I did my best to install new pathways in my brain. And what I mean by that is, the things that happen to me, to immediately look at them and perceive them in a different manner than how I used to perceive them. It used to be like, oh, I lost a job. I'm so embarrassed. I'm a failure. Nothing will ever work out for me. And now it's like, oh, I lost a job. Whatever. I don't need to be driving a half hour over there anyways. Like, I'll find something closer. Thank God for that. Or like a loss of a relationship. Like, you would lose break up with a girlfriend and you're feeling awful and you're like, why me? Why me? But then you're like, okay, like no big deal, like something else is going to pop up, or even better, changing the way you perceive things. There's a lot of mental work to be done with it, a lot of therapy type work to help you with your mental illness, but it can be done. There's some physical things and mental things, but I would say a big thing is to move your body, be out in nature, lay in some grass, get the sun on your skin and on your face. Sweat, do things that are great for your physical, because it correlates directly with your spiritual and your mental.
I love everything you're saying, because so many people can relate, because mental health and mental illness is so common, so common. Everyone that I know has been diagnosed with different things and all these different labels and all these things. They put you in a box, and people have trauma. And so you're not just sharing your story, you're sharing everyone's story, because so many people can relate. And knowing that you've overcome your challenges is such a beautiful thing. And I love how you were saying with the mindset, it's not what happens to you, it's how you react. And we hear that over and over and over again. But if you can reprogram your brain, because we constantly have negative self-talk and we self-sabotage and we have a voice in our head that says negative things, but we can switch those thoughts. And do you do affirmations or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I as much as I can remember, I don't have a set schedule of doing affirmations, but those are another really, really helpful thing. So, speak into existence how you feel about yourself and how you want to feel about yourself. And, just quickly, something I want to add is, if anyone's listening to this and they have mental health issues and they're like, oh, you're not on meds, you definitely don't have the mental health issues that I have. I want you to know that, not to compare in a way like that, but I was given a severe mental illness designation by the state.
Like a diagnosis?
Designation.
Okay, what is that?
So you go and see a therapist and you have all these other diagnoses of your mental health issues, but you are given a designation that those mental health issues are severe enough that you need extra special help. You're on the same basically level as people with schizophrenia. I've been homeless several times in my life because of my mental health issues, And that was a huge indication that I had an SMI designation.
Severe mental illness.
So like, again, I like severe mental illness designation because of my illnesses and still able to overcome it. Like I promise you can do the same. Like just put the work in and it's so worth it. You will love how you feel every single day. And incidents like a motorcycle accident won't even faze you. You'll be so happy that you're able to overcome the mental hurdles that anything else that happens in your life will be just another walk in the park.
Well, you're an inspiration because I feel when people get that diagnosis, they identify with it and say, this is who I am. And you have worked so hard on yourself. And it's not an overnight thing. It's not like you snap your fingers and all your mental health issues are gone. This is something that you've had to continuously work on. And I'm sure because of all the different situations and traumas you've been through, you've had to really, really work at it. And I just want to say that you're such an inspiration that you've never given up. And you have cultivated the life that you have because of your willpower, your strength, your determination, and your resilience.
A little bit of stubbornness too.
Stubbornness and resilience. But being stubborn is good in that way because you've powered through and you're so strong mentally. And that has transpired to your ability to start working on regaining your ability to walk again. And so for anyone that's watching that has had a struggle, just know that you're not alone and that you can get through anything. How can people find you? Can I share your Instagram?
Yeah, Patrick Fuma, one word. Fuma is F-U-M-A, M as in Mary, Patrick Fuma.
On Instagram.
Yep, on Instagram. Facebook is Patrick Fumarola. I am the only Patrick Fumarola in the world, I think. So you don't have a difficult time finding me. I love to do acro yoga. I love yoga. I like to make music. I like to be around music. I mean, I really love to do so much. I'm sure there's plenty of things we could connect with or collab with. Like, give me a shout anytime.
Awesome. And thank you so much for being a beautiful light in this world and bringing community together because the world can all use healing.
Couldn't agree more. And thank you for putting this podcast together and for all that you do. Like I see you doing so much that contributes to other people's healing. So keep doing the good work.
We're all in this together. Thank you.
This is true. We really are. And if you can't see, we're holding hands, fist pumping right now. We're so excited, all in this together.